It's feeling like this Saturday is make or break for South Carolina and their lofty goals this season. A trip to Columbia, Missouri to face the 23rd ranked Tigers over at 7 Eastern this Saturday. The biggest question mark may be entering. This is the status of that guy you see laying there. Had the head injury, LaNorris Sellers, that he suffered against Vandy, as a big-time ranked opponent waits for them, and Missouri tries to go 4-0 for the third straight season starting off the campaign. South Carolina won this game last year to snap a 5-game losing streak to Missouri. In that game, LaNorris Sellers threw for a career-high 353 yards and 5 passing touchdowns. South Carolina's coming, though, off of a loss to Vandy. Mizzou riding a 13-game home win streak as we enter Saturday. So let's take this a step further here or there, and I'm pleased to welcome in J.C. Shurburtt, who covers South Carolina for 24/7 Sports, and Gabe Dearmond, also at 24/7 covering Missouri. Question number one that I feel like we just have to start with here is that health of LaNorris Sellers. Mentioned that already, leaving that Vandy game in the first half with a head injury. And J.C., what can you tell us about his status and the availability to play on Saturday?
I'd say it's definitely up in the air. You know, head injuries like that, it kind of depends on when you come out of it, so to speak. I hesitate to call it a concussion because we haven't gotten the official word, but that's what it seems like it is. And, you go through a series of tests. They don't mess around with that anymore. And if you're ready to go, you're ready to go. If not, you sit. And it's one of those things. Sometimes it can be a few days. Sometimes it can be a couple of weeks. You just never know with it. I know that Shane Beamer said on Sunday night they were optimistic. And then I think in a little bit of SEC gamesmanship, he's piped down and said, you'll see the availability report later this week. I know last year's game, Brady Cook, none of us thought he was going to play, and then he did and played very, very well. So I don't know if maybe that has a little bit to do with it or not, but that's, my hunch is, that it's probably 50-50, just given the nature of that type of injury.
Yeah, South Carolina outscored 17-0 after LaNorris Sellers left the game. So then, Gabe, that leads me to kind of ask you this. What's the preparation look like for Missouri, not knowing who their QB they're going to face?
Yeah, what Eli Drinkwitz said on Tuesday, he expects Sellers to play. I think he learned some lessons last year. We had a situation like this when Missouri was getting ready to play Texas A&M, and Marcel Reed had played a couple weeks in a row. Connor Wigman was banged up, and Drinkwitz came into his press conference and said, I don't even know why they'd think about playing the other guy. Marcel Reed's really good. He's playing great, blah, blah, blah. Went on and on, didn't even mention Connor Wigman's name, and then Connor Wigman came out and threw for like 340 and absolutely lit Missouri up. So I don't think you're going to get anything out of Eli Drinkwitz or Missouri that South Carolina can use this week as any sort of fuel. But it's kind of interesting, like JC mentioned, this series has a history of quarterback stuff, not just Brady Cook last year. I mean, I remember in 2013, Connor Shaw came off the bench in the fourth quarter to lead South Carolina to this miraculous comeback. So this seems like it's a yearly story on one side or the other when these two teams play.
Yeah, now you look at Missouri, they get ready to try to protect Memorial Stadium yet again, a 13-game home win streak. So, Gabe, I'll stick with you here. What's key for Missouri to be able to get the win, and they've seemed to be able to score in bunches?
Yeah, I think it's funny. Coming into the year, we thought the defense is the strength of this team. There were a lot of questions offensively, losing Brady Cook, losing Armand Mimbo, losing Theo Weiss and Luther Burden. Missouri has done anything it's wanted on offense. Now, it has done so against, Louisiana, which isn't what Louisiana's been, Central Arkansas, which doesn't count, and Kansas, which is a Power 4 team, but probably not the caliber of what they're going to face here. I think the key for Missouri is that run game. I mean, Ahmad Hardy had 250 and 3 touchdowns. He's the second leading rusher in the country. He actually has more yards after contact and more missed tackles forced than anybody in America. So I think if you get that going, it opens up the passing game. And for Missouri, I think the key is just keep a losing team losing, because I think everybody thinks that South Carolina has more talent than it's shown, but momentum is a real thing in college football. If you can jump out early with that home crowd, I think maybe some doubt starts to creep in for South Carolina of, hey, maybe we're not as good as we thought we were 3 weeks ago.
So, JC, go back maybe 4 weeks ago, 5-6 weeks ago. This was a South Carolina team that was getting ready for the season that felt like they had a true chance to be able to make the playoffs. At least that was the talk surrounding the program. And now you enter a game like this where it feels like they cannot afford to lose at all. Of course, the SEC schedule is the SEC schedule, so you'll have opportunities later on down the road. But with Clemson not looking like a world beater, you still get LSU, Ole Miss, A&M, Alabama, Oklahoma, and all that. Does this feel, though, like a game that they cannot afford to lose?
I'll just say it would be very helpful if they could win the football game on Saturday night. As far as, you look, Vanderbilt's a team South Carolina defeated 16 straight times. I think it's their best team they've had during that entire period. They are a very tough out. Sellers did not play the second half. Obviously, he's a very important part of this team. But, it's also probably more important to get out there. And, Gabe's right. The Missouri defense is something I've had circled all season long, or all season long because of their personnel. To get out there and move the ball and try to score points against a good defense, especially on the road. South Carolina was 4-1 on the road last year. Only loss was a 2-point loss at Bama, which they probably should have won. So you got to have that road magic out there. It's a very loud crowd, especially at night, especially when Missouri jumps ahead. And so they got to kind of weather the storm a little bit. But having a good game on offense on Saturday night, win or lose, I think would go a long way toward, I guess, making Gamecock fans a little more encouraged about the season. But, as far as things like the playoff and all that, yeah, absolutely. You can't be sitting there with 2 losses with that murderer's row coming up starting in October with LSU and then all the rest.
Yeah, the schedule is going to schedule when it comes to the SEC. You seem like you never get a week off when you think you might have a week off. So we've talked a little bit of X's and O's. Now we need to get down to the nitty-gritty of it all. I need game predictions from both of you guys. Gabe, I'll go to you first.
So the easy thing is, I can't believe this line is 13 points. I think before the season it would have been South Carolina by probably 3. I think a lot of people are going to pick Missouri by a lot of points. This series is so weird. I expect South Carolina, regardless of Sellers, to keep it closer than Missouri fans are comfortable with. But I also think Missouri's just a better team. I'm going somewhere in the neighborhood of like 31-20 Missouri. So right on that, that 11.5 number, I would not necessarily feel comfortable with that either way.
Yeah, I think in this series, one thing South Carolina struggled mightily with, no matter how much they've been formidable on defense, even last year, stopping the run. The outside zone is the base play that Missouri runs. Missouri has outrushed South Carolina during the Drinkwitz and Beamer era by an average of 190 to 66 yards per game. This team, South Carolina, struggled to run the football. They've had offensive line issues. Sellers may not play. Like I said, Missouri, I voted them number 1 in my SEC poll this week with the 24/7 Sports team publishers. I've never bought that they were a 12th place team in this league, knowing their personnel. So I think they're pretty good. I think if things were clicking for South Carolina, I may pick a close Gamecock win, but I feel like it would be an upset. So I'm going to have to go with Mizzou as well, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's call it a weird score, 31-16, something like that.
31-16, both guys picking Missouri, but South Carolina does enter on a 4-game regular season winning streak when going up against AP-ranked teams, so that we put to the test Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern. JC Shurburtt and Gabe Dearmond, thank you so much, fellas, getting ready for this game, and we get ready for games all across the nation by tapping into the college football pregame show that will be on the road this Saturday in Lincoln, Nebraska, ahead of the ranked Michigan team, taking on an undefeated Nebraska squad who will face their toughest test to date. That starts at 9 a.m. Eastern. You see the folks, the crew will be out there. Tune in.